This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. So the next one is credentials. Now for credentials, as soon as you've already signed into, okay, as soon as you've registered for conference, we've already received your credentials. So you don't have to write a credence paper indicating who is your head of state, that they've sent you and you're part of this delegation. That is not really necessary. However, should your credentials be doubted, then, or you want to modify your rights, then you'll continue sitting with everyone else until the Secretary General decides to review what rights and privileges you're exactly that you'll be accorded with time. So from there we have, I hope you've understood what credentials are. And then we have participation of non-members. Yeah. Now for non-members, we have, please know that those are two. Okay, we have non-members and we have observers and member states. Now for non-members, these are people they're neither observers and they're also not member states, as in they don't represent a country per se. So for them, their rights are a bit, can I say, then they don't have a wide range of rights and privileges. So for them, it's not that easy for them. They're not really allowed to participate in substantive procedure. So only procedural, and that's just about it. But then when you get to members of non-governmental organizations, then those guys actually have those representatives. So let's say you are representing UNHCR, say in SOCAM, then you'll reserve full rights, just like every full member of that committee. So you can vote and you can contribute and you can give speeches, but you can give speeches and you can do everything else that a full member can. Okay, so so for introductory statements to the committee, if desired, an NGO holds the right to submit a written introduction to the committee chair that elaborates the position and powers of the NGO. So the chair reserves the right to postpone the introduction of the NGO if necessary, so as to allow member states to continue talking. And then written and oral announcements. So for an NGO is allowed to address the committee in oral or written form, stating its stance on the topic being discussed and the possible contributions it can make. So announcements will also be made at the discretion of the chair. So the chair controls the room ideally. So on to the next portion, which is statements by the Secretariat. So the Secretariat is made up of the Secretary General, who is in charge of she is the highest in rankings at the conference. So she's usually the final say when it comes to matters of great concern. And we have various USGs, and then we have committee chairs, and okay, so basically the committee days, and then we have now the delegates. So, and we'll have protocol as well, but that we'll discuss later. So for members of the Secretariat, whatever the Secretary General or her Under Secretary Generals state to each and every one of you, please make sure you adhere to and you listen to attentively. During the opening ceremony, you'll meet everyone, and whatever instructions are issued there will apply throughout the week. So make sure that you listen to them. Now, the general powers of the committee staff. So these are the people you'll be interacting with from Monday afternoon all the way to Thursday afternoon. So these are the committee days. They usually constitute of the committee chair, the assistant chair, and the committee secretary. So the committee chair is the one who will control the delegates and the flow of debate generally. So he or she can decide that we'll move in this direction, can interrupt the flow of debate to allow for a guest to come in or for an announcement from the secretariat and matters like that. So please pay attention and listen to your committee secretaries, the committee days. Whoever it is that is speaking, accord them all respect. And if you're caught disrespecting any of the chairs, that will warrant you a badge clip, and you will be, and that will actually, if you get 3 badge clippings, then you'll be out of the conference and you'll not be issued with your certificate. So please respect everyone, as I have said, not just the people in authority. Yeah. So, and if should any problems arise in your committee, please feel free to follow the chain of command. You can report to the committee chair, who will report to the members of the Secretariat, and then the Secretary General will deal with the issue. Now we move on to the next part of this training, which is quorum. Now for quorum, Quorum is ideally the number of people that are required to kickstart debate. So in the morning before, now this is where usually the flow of debate begins. So quorum is so in the morning when you're coming in, you usually have a number of people that are required to start off the committee, just a quarter of the committee members. So if there are 80 of you in the committee and 20 of you are present, then you already have quorum, so you can begin your discussions. Now, for even same to after lunchtime. So because quorum usually leads up to roll call so that you can begin your committee session. So, and it's important for you to know for every committee to have quorum so that you can be able to vote on substantial issues and procedural issues. So you will get to that on the importance of quorum when we're discussing the flow of debate. Yeah. Now on to courtesy. So for courtesy, ideally I had said that everyone should make sure that you're that you're just be respectful. Just accord everyone respect. It doesn't matter who they are, from protocol to your fellow delegates to observers to the committee chairs to the secretariat in general. If you're disrespectful in any way, even while giving speeches, it's important for you can agree to disagree, but please do it in a very diplomatic way. We're all trying to be diplomats in the future, so accord everyone courtesy at all times. Thank you. Sorry. And then we have electronic aids and technology. So contrary to what we've been doing in the past, we've been allowing people to use their laptops and at times their phones, but from this year we'll not allow that to happen because you're given the registration for conference ideally ends, let's say, a month before. So we expect that by the time you're coming for conference, you have done your research well and you understand everything that has to do with that topic. So that's why we do not allow anyone to use their gadgets, because you tend to be distracted a lot while using them. So you can only use them during lunch, and maybe when you're going home, or other times when we're not ideally using committee sessions. It can also be used during we can also use it for other things, such as such as during an unmoderated caucus with the authority of your chair, of course. Now we have delegates conduct. I think I had already covered that under courtesy. So make sure that any remarks you have to use are respectful to whichever country. If you want to state something that will offend another state, please make sure you run it by your chair first before you speak it in front of the whole committee, so that we won't have any problems or quarrels among delegates there. Now on to the next part, which is absences. Now, if you wish to be absent from your committee room, please inform your chair. If you won't be around, please inform your chair prior to your absence, because as I had said, every member state's vote counts, so you have to make sure that your absence is recorded so that it won't affect the committee sessions. Yes. Now, I don't know up to there if anyone has a question. You can use the chat feature where everyone can text. Let me see. Does anyone have a question so far? Anyone? Okay. So.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I didn't quite understand scope.
Oh, scope.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so Mildred, yeah, you can speak.
It's Nema. I'm using my mom's.
Oh, okay, it's okay.
Yeah, I just didn't quite understand scope. Because like, yeah.
It's okay. Sawa, scope. Perfect.
Yeah, may you please explain again?
Yeah, I will, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes.
I didn't understand rule number 13, absence and scope. Yeah.
13 and scope. Okay, perfect. Anyone else?
Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else with a question? Okay, so let me cover that. So, scope. Ideally, so thank you let me just read it word for word and then I'll explain it. So the rules include included in this guide are applicable to all committees of the General Assembly. So what we're simulating at Saimun is a General Assembly. In order to explain General Assembly, imagine all countries, all 196 of them in one room, okay? So we have people who came from, as I had said, Saimun will be covering the following committees. You can find the background guides on the website. We'll show you that at the end of this discussion. So for us, we have 7 committees that we'll be simulating. So we have the General Assembly, so which ideally all these committees fall under except the Security Council. So we have a committee like UN Habitat that is discussing urbanization. We have United Nations Development Program, which discusses development. We have UNEP, the environmental program. We have DISEC, which discusses disarmament and security. We have SOCAM, which discusses it stands for social, humanitarian, and cultural and humanitarian committee. So you see now all those the rules of procedure we're discussing right now apply to all of them. However, when it comes to other committees like crisis and other specialized agencies, they use a totally different rules of procedure, but we won't be simulating that for Saimun. Now, I think another point you guys got confused is the fact that, okay, so ideally beforehand, we used to bring all both campus and high school students together. But this year we'll have them in different committees. That's why I had said for UN Habitat, we have campus. So for the campus students will be in the following committees. They'll be in UN Habitat, just as UN and then / and Habitat, like habitat where an organism lives, ideally, it's home, ideally. And then we have UNDP, United Nations Development Program, and then we have DISEC. So those are the committees that will be simulated by the campus students. For the high school students, you have the choice through your teachers to either register for UN Women. It discusses matters to do with women, so power to the feminists. And then we have UNEP. Now UNEP will also, so the environmental programs, all of them will be discussed by the high school students. We have Security Council, will also be discussed by high school students. And then we have SOCAM. Now, SOCAM, as I had said earlier, discusses social, cultural, and humanitarian matters. So that will also be simulated by high school students, okay? And then for absence, I don't know if that is enough yet. For the others, if you still haven't understood scope, then please. But ideally, all these rules of procedure that we're discussing, that we will be training you guys on till mid-May, apply to all these committees, okay? So that is what we will be dealing with. I didn't want to go into the nitty-gritties of all the other committees that are usually in the GA, but you can find that on the UN website. But I only wanted to cover whatever we'll be discussing at Saimun. Now for absence, you have to, okay, let me try and look for a way to frame it. If you know you won't be present, perhaps maybe on the previous day weren't feeling too well and you might not make it tomorrow, it's important if you inform your chair that you won't be there, so that they will mark you as absent the following day, or they know that you won't be around, so that they don't keep looking for you every single time. If you wish to leave your committee room, you have to inform your chair prior to you leaving the committee room. In the real United Nations, you can't just leave the committee room when discussions are going, because once they have to know that your absence is okay, that you're basically out, so that should it come to voting procedures or when your input is really needed, you won't just have vanished into thin air. So maybe when you need to go to the washroom, that is an example of your absence actually being needing being recorded by the committee chair for the days, in other words. Then you have to show that you're there, that you won't be okay, you've gone to the washroom, so you have your bathroom card, so you move out, and then the chair will have noticed that you're not there. So should voting come, they will skip you, so that they won't just mark you as not being present, because your country's input is very, very relevant. So whichever time you know you won't be absent, make sure the day knows, so that you guys, so that you can't come and claim later that, oh, I really didn't know that this was going to happen, and that won't and this was also going to happen. So it just it's very important for your input to be accommodated. So that is why your absence needs to be recorded. Yeah. If you still have an issue with that, then please wait for the second session. Let me just jump into the second session, and then you will have another round of questions. Yeah. Okay. Now I think we're supposed to move on to rule number 14. I think we'll be covering 14 to 20 something. It's from page 10 to 20, sorry. So the rules governing debate. So it includes rules that establish how formal debate runs, how the agenda is set, how debate is closed, and how caucuses work. So we'll get into the nitty-gritties of that, just the basics of it. And as you can see, there are like two people there discussing, and that is how it is. Now for the agenda, an agenda is basically the topic you'll be discussing. So for Saimun, we don't usually need to set an agenda because we only have one topic that will be discussed. So we don't really, it's not really necessary for us to set an agenda because it has already been set. As you can see on the third bullet, a committee in which only one topic area may be proposed for the agenda will be considered to have automatically adopted that topic area without debate. So when you come for conference, it would be best if you just don't, please don't raise a motion to set an agenda because it has already been set. Only discussing one thing. Oh, and on that note, the background guides for the various committees are on the website. Under committee background guides, you'll find it. It's usually on the top left corner, but we'll show you all of that afterwards. So ideally, so for Saimun, we don't really need to set an agenda. So yeah, maybe move on to the next point, please. So, okay, now for point 15, debate, yeah? So opening statements, delegates may read their position papers is required to, okay, sorry, opening statements into brackets, delegates may read their position papers. Pardon? Oh, sorry. Okay. So as I was saying, for Saimun, ideally, the agenda has already been set, so we don't really need to set an agenda. So we'll go straight into the general speakers list as soon as roll call has been done and everyone else has been admitted into the room. So afterwards, oh, sorry. I'm sorry if I was breaking off. As I was saying, that you need, okay, so we have the general speakers list. It's a list which goes on and on. It's never exhausted. So you can add your name continually as long as you're not. It will be displayed on the software by the committee secretary. So it's a list where you go and speak generally on the agenda. It's not like during the caucuses where you have to address whatever topic has been raised. Okay, so that is the general speakers list. And it usually, after 5 people have spoken, then the chair usually motions and asks the committee, are there any motions on the floor? So if you hear that, then that is your cue for you to raise a motion regarding either a moderated or an unmoderated caucus. Yes. Now, so for the general speaker, you can read your position paper. We'll discuss what a position paper is later on. But yeah, ideally, you should make sure a position paper is essentially your country's stand on a particular topic. So if you're representing, say, the UK and you're discussing climate change, then you'll have to write a position paper based on the UK stand on how exactly to address or deal with climate change. I hope that is okay. And I hope I'm audible. Yeah. So on to point 16, we have an unmoderated caucus. Now, an unmoderated caucus is let me say an informal session where you move into groups, different groups. You break off into small groups and then you discuss and come up with working papers. But ideally, you can, the first chance you get to do an unmoderated caucus, it's a chance for you to find like-minded people so that you can now regroup and now come up with a working paper that will ideally put forth the ideas that you want to have. So from there, once you've come, so for an unmoderated caucus, in order for you to, but we'll get to, let me just put this out there. For you to raise a motion to enter into an unmoderated caucus, you'll just have to, for an unmoderated caucus, the only thing you need to do is state the time limit of the caucus itself. I hope you've noted that down, the time limit and the topic that will be discussed during that unmoderated caucus. So those are the two things that are key for an unmoderated caucus. And the longest time you can raise an unmoderated caucus for is 20 minutes, and it can only be extended once for half the time, which is 20. So ideally, the extension, the caucus itself and the extension should not go for more than 30 minutes. So I hope, but we'll get to that later on. I hope you've understood that. So, and if it's dilatory, then the chair can rule it out of order, and that is not subject to appeal. Now, we have something called a consultation of the whole. Now, a consultation of the whole is, and it's like an unmoderated caucus, but with some bits of moderated in it. Essentially, if a chair or a delegate feels that they need to consult the whole committee on a certain subject matter, then that is when they raise a motion for consultation of the whole. And a delegate should actually specify a time limit and a topic for discussion, and it should not exceed 10 minutes. Sorry, should not exceed 10 minutes. And this motion will be put to a vote and will pass given a simple majority. So during the execution of this motion, delegates not speaking will be expected to remain in their seats. So it's not like an unmoderated caucus where you can move around the committee and go and visit other blocks and matters like that. So, pardon me, and during the execution of this motion, delegates are not speaking are expected to sit, and the chair may rule the motion dilatory or at the end of the consultation of the whole at any point for any reason if they feel that, and his or her decisions are not subject to appeal. So like as I had said, like unmoderated caucuses, a consultation of the whole may only be extended for once and half of the time. So ideally, a consultation of the whole should not go with its extension included, should not go for more than 15 minutes. So, and it's not given such a long time so that you can go back to discussing major matters. You know, a consultation of the whole is when maybe you feel like the committee isn't understanding a particular thing, so you need to go and revisit and explain things better, and then now you go back to your moderated caucus after you've already cleared the air. Now we move on to a moderated caucus. Now, for a moderated caucus, the purpose of a moderated caucus is to facilitate the substantive debate at critical junctures in discussion. In a moderated caucus, the chair will temporarily depart from the speakers list, so the general speakers list ideally, sorry for that mistake, the general speakers list, and call on delegates to speak at his or her discretion. So you have to put forth your name there. And the way to enter into a moderated caucus, as I had said, once you have to transition from the general speakers list to the moderated caucus. So once 5 speakers have already spoken on GSL, so that is the general speakers list, then the chair calls for a motion, and most of the time delegates usually raise a motion to enter into a moderated caucus. Now for a moderated caucus, you have to give the following matters. You have to state the following matters. So when you're raising a motion, it's a motion to enter into a moderated caucus for 20 minutes. That's usually the time limit. You can set it for less, but don't go past 20 minutes, please. Time limit, time per speaker. So let's say 2 minutes per speaker, and do not specify the amount of speakers. Okay, so just time per speaker, and then the topic that you wish to be discussed. So those 3 things: the time limit, which is 20 minutes, time per speaker, let's say 2 minutes per speaker, and the topic, let's say you wish to discuss global fund for climate change. So motion to move into a moderated caucus for 20 minutes, 2 minutes per speaker to discuss global fund for climate change. So from there, now that is ideally how a moderated caucus should be raised, and it can be extended for only once for half the time. So a moderated caucus cannot, in its entirety, should not surpass 30 minutes. It's the same as an unmoderated caucus. Now the difference between the two is the fact that the difference between an unmoderated caucus and a moderated caucus, For an unmoderated caucus, as I had said, you move into blocks, into groups in the committee room, and then you discuss your matters from there. But for moderated caucus, it's like GSL, but then you're addressing a specific topic and you can't go outside that. Should you do that, then you'll be ruled out of order, okay? And then, and as another thing, there's also allocation of time per speaker. As I had said, please do not, even if you, according to your mind, in 20 minutes and I've given time per speaker as 2 minutes, then ideally I should have 10 speakers. So do not specify the number of speakers that will talk. Now, in terms of voting for moderated caucuses, so if all of you have raised a moderated caucus for 20 minutes, then it will be ranked in descending order of number of speakers or the speaker's time. So let's say all of you have raised 20 minutes moderated caucuses, and then one of you has said 1.5 minutes, another one 1 minute, and then another one 2 minutes. So we'll start with whoever has raised the 2 minutes moderated caucus, then we move to the 1.5 minute, and then to the 1 minute motion. But if we vote for the motion, the first motion that was 2 minutes per speaker, and it passes, the other two automatically fail. So that is one thing you have to notice about caucuses. When you've raised a motion and it's voted for, and there were other motions, then the others automatically fail, and you move into the caucus that was voted for by a simple majority of in the room. And then on to moderated caucuses that differ only in topic will be ranked in the same order as they were proposed. So let's say we have, let me use the delegates I had mentioned earlier. We have Peter and Anne, and both of them had raised, they're basically the same in terms of time per speaker and the total time, but the only thing that differs is the topic. Then what we'll do is, if Anne had raised her motion before Peter, then we'll vote for Anne's motion first. If it passes, then Peter's motion will automatically fail. Another thing, now the last, no motions are in order between speeches during a moderated caucus. A delegate who has been recognized to speak during a moderated caucus can and will be ruled out of order if the delegate's speech does not address the topic of the moderated caucus. So ideally, make sure you stick to the topic. If no delegate wishes to speak during a moderated caucus, then the caucus will automatically end. I hope you've understood that. And then there's emphasis at the bottom that a moderated caucus may be extended only once, but after the caucus has ended. That is the only time you can raise it. And the combined length of the moderated caucus, sorry, there's a small mistake there. The combined length of the moderated caucus and its extension may not exceed 30 minutes. That's in its entirety. Yeah. And then you cannot yield your remaining time to other delegates, but we'll get to yielding during the subsequent training, so I don't confuse you right now. Now on to point 19, which is closure of debate. Now, closure of debate is a delegate putting forward that they feel that we should not, the committee should not waste any more of its time discussing a particular matter. So you can raise a motion. Let me just read from whatever is written here. So when the floor is open, you cannot raise closure of debate during a moderated caucus or an unmoderated caucus. That is totally out of order. So when the floor is open, a delegate may move to close debate on the substantive or procedural matter under discussion. The delegate may move to close debate on the general topic, debate on the agenda, or debate on an amendment. Pardon me. The chair may, subject to appeal, rule such a motion dilatory. So if the chair feels that whatever is being discussed is actually important, and the delegate just and they can rule it out of order, essentially. So when closure of debate is moved, the chair may recognize up to 2 speakers against the motion. Those who wish to speak for are usually not allowed to speak. And then, as that is what has been explained in the second point, then closure of debate requires support of 2/3 of the members present and voting. You see now, I was telling you that absence is key, so that if you won't vote, then they can know how exactly they'll fluctuate their voting count. So 2/3 of the members. So if we have 60 members in the committee room, then 2/3 of that would be 40. And if it doesn't reach, even if it's 31, which is a simple majority, and it doesn't reach the threshold that is 40, then it automatically fails and there will be no closure of debate. So if there are no speakers against the closing debate, the committee chair will ask the delegates if there are any objections to voting by acclamation. Now, acclamation is, I don't know if some of you have been to MUN, but if you haven't, sometimes if you watched parliamentary proceedings, all those in favor of this say aye, and then you hear them saying aye. That's a voting by acclamation. So if you as a committee feel that each and everyone's vote must count, then you can decide not to vote by acclamation. But ideally, that is how things usually go. So you vote by acclamation, all of you, by saying aye and nay. And then whoever, if the ayes have it, they have it. If they don't, then they don't. Now, if there are no objections, the motion to close debate will automatically be adopted, and the committee will move immediately to substantive voting procedures. And then whatever is the outcome, will actually hold the committee there. So I'm sorry. Okay. So suspension or adjournment of meeting. So there's a difference between these two. Suspension of debate is what usually happens. Let's say you're there on a day like Tuesday, you have 2 committee sessions. Yes. So on Tuesday, you will suspend debate at lunchtime to come back in the afternoon. Okay. So suspension of the meeting, as has been highlighted, is a postponement of all committee functions until the next meeting. However, the adjournment of a committee means the postponement for the rest of the conference. Sorry, yeah. So as has been, yeah. So the adjournment of the meeting means the postponement of all committee functions for the duration of the conference. So an adjournment of meetings, if it's in your committee rooms, it should be the day before you go for the General Assembly, which should be Wednesday afternoon, you see. So that is when an adjournment in a committee room will happen. But adjournments of debate will ideally happen in the GA, where all committees are meeting. That is when everything has been concluded, all resolutions have been voted for, and then that is now you're basically wrapping up the conference. So that is when an adjournment of meeting usually happens. But suspension between breaks, between lunch, before lunch break, that is when you raise an adjournment, and in the evening when you're going home, that is still suspension of debate. It's not that you've come to the end of it, you're just going to carry on when you meet next. Yeah. So that is usually the difference between the suspension and adjournment of a committee. So the chair may rule such motions out of order if they're not, and these decisions are not subject to appeal, and we'll get to appealing exactly. So when in order, such motions will not be debatable, but will immediately be voted upon, barring any motions taking precedence, and will require simple majority to pass. So if you're in a committee of 80 people and you have 41 people, then that's fine. Doesn't require a 2/3 plus 1. However, a motion to adjourn will be out of order prior to the lapse of 3/4 of the time allotted for the last meeting of the committee. Okay, so yeah, and then in case of a real emergency as declared by the Secretary General, so in case of a fire or something like that, then God forbid though, members of the Secretariat or committee staff debate will automatically be suspended without any exception. So in case of any emergency, then please, as I had said, listen to the Secretary General or any member of the Secretariat when they come to give or issue out orders. It's usually for your own safety. Yeah. Now we move on to motion to postpone and resumption, that is taking from the table. Now, these two will come later on when you're discussing draft resolutions. I will explain the flow of debate when we get there, but we have something called draft resolutions. It's the solution that usually work towards all of you. So if I can give an example, in Kenya, we usually have laws. Now for parliamentarians, they usually have a certain procedure they follow. So the bill is produced and then they go to the committee stage, they go do public participation, come back and debate it furthermore. And then, so you see what that bill, which will eventually become an act of law, is what will basically bind the people of Kenya. Like, let's say if Parliament right now is discussing matters to do with COVID-19, so they need to come up with a particular bill. Yes. So now that is what they're working towards, all of them. So imagine that as a draft resolution, and imagine that each and every one of the members, the MPs, that is, are ideally the people are member states, representatives of members of states. So once you have that in mind, now just bring that into this context. So whenever the floor is open, so you cannot just bring up the motion to sorry, you cannot bring up such a motion when the floor is not open, or like during a caucus or matters like that. So a delegate may move for the postponement of debate on a draft resolution, amendment, or topic currently on the floor. So if you feel as a delegate that whatever is being discussed is taking too much of the committee's time, and you could discuss other matters and come back to it much later, then that is when you can raise this motion. So the motion, otherwise known as motion to table draft resolution or topic, or etc., will require 2/3 to vote. Okay, a 2/3 vote, 2/3, it should be +1 vote to pass, and will be debatable to the extent of one speaker for and another speaker against. So when it comes to motions, especially touching on draft resolutions, usually have a speaker for and a speaker against that motion. So no debate or action will be allowed on any draft resolution or amendment or topic on debate which has been postponed. So you can't really bring it back when we're discussing, let's say we're discussing global fund and then we decide to shelf. So take it, okay, postponing is like shelving it and then we'll come back to it. So you cannot postpone, sorry, you cannot, so if it has been postponed, you can't bring up the topic of global fund for climate change again until we decide now to take it from the table. That is, we decide to unshelf it and come and discuss it now. So a motion to resume debate on an amendment, draft resolution, or topic on which debate has been postponed will require a simple majority to pass and will be debatable to the extent of one speaker for and one speaker against. And then resumption of the debate will cancel the effects of the postponement, ideally. So when you've discussed it, then yeah, you can, when you've decided to take it from the table, then you can move on to the next. You can continue discussing it, sorry. Yeah. Now we come to appeals. Now for appeals, when you feel unhappy with a certain decision that the chair has made, then okay, or essentially the committee has made, then there are some matters that you can appeal and there are others that you cannot appeal. So an appeal can only be made to procedural matters, but not to substantive matters. So if it's procedural matters, are matters like voting and all that, but not for matters like draft resolutions and all of that. You cannot appeal those. So, but you can look at Rule 35 and 36. We'll give you we'll explain to you how exactly to get this handbook so that you can look at it at your own time. A delegate may appeal any procedural decision by the chair unless it is one that cannot be appealed. So that is why it's important for you to go through this handbook so that you can understand what can be appealed and what cannot be appealed. The delegate can only appeal a ruling immediately after it has been pronounced. So if you wait for, you just sit there and wait, like let's say the decision was made yesterday and then you're coming today to appeal, then that will have already, will have already taken effect and it won't really help it if you appeal the decision. So you have to be very quick about appealing a decision you're unhappy with. So the delegate will be given 30 seconds to explain why the reason behind your appeal, and then the chair may speak briefly in defense, and then an appeal shall be put to a vote and the decision of the chair shall stand unless overruled by 2/3 of those members present and voting. So a chair's decision not to debate a draft resolution or amendment or extend time is never appealable. So you see, so there's some, as you can see, there's some things that have already been given here. Those are ideally procedural matters that cannot be appealed. So a yes vote indicates support of the chair's ruling, and
Yeah, I think we lost Glory, so I'll just continue from where she left off, sorry. So when it comes to appeal, a yes vote indicates the support of the chair's ruling, and a no vote indicates opposition to the ruling. And as Glory said, there's some rules that may never be appealed by a delegate. One of them is the chair's approval of a draft resolution or amendment, chair's decision to rule a moderated or unmoderated caucus out of order, moderator's decision to end an unmoderated caucus early or refuse to extend debate, moderator's decision to rule a motion for suspension or adjournment out of order, the diocese's decision to refuse a right of reply, the action of calling a delegate out of order, and lastly, the expelling of a delegate out of the committee room, and also taking the floor away from a delegate and asking the delegate to sit down if they're disrespectful. Now we'll move to the flow of debate in a committee. This is basically giving a layout of what happens from the beginning of the committee session until the end. It's just a recap of what we've already gone through. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're here. Okay. So it's basically a recap of what we've gone through, because the two sessions we've had is just basically laying down the procedure from when the committee session begins on Monday afternoon. So as we said, when you walk into the committee, after the roll call has been done, you begin with your opening statements. You set the agenda, but for Saimun, we only have one topic, so there's no need to set agenda. You debate. The debate begins with the general speakers list. After it has run for about 5 to 10 speakers, then you will be asked to raise a motion. You can either raise a motion to go into a moderated or unmoderated caucus. And as Glory said, the extension is only by half the original time. So if the original time for the moderated or unmoderated caucus was 20 minutes, you can only extend it by 10 minutes, giving a total of 30 minutes. And yeah, that's basically what we've gone through. If you have any questions from the first and second parts, please feel free to raise them.
Hi.
Hello?
So in the conference, we will not be allowed to carry our technology gears like our tablets, phones, laptops.
You will. The only thing is you're not allowed to use them during the committee sessions, unless the chair has discretion to allow. For example, if you're an unmoderated caucus, they may grant you the permission, but the general rule is during the committee sessions, you're not allowed to use your gadgets, but you may have them on you.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome.
I'm sorry, I had a small technical glitch on this side. I'm sorry for those who could not hear me for I think I noticed a couple of minutes, but I hope Obama has been able to help each and every one of you. Does anyone else have a question regarding the parts that we've actually touched on? Yes,
I
Myra?
have a question.
Oh, and Jalen, okay.
Can I ask?
Go ahead. Yes.
If you're found using your phone, can it result in clipping?
Yeah. Ideally, protocol. Okay, let me just explain the basis for badge clipping. Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay.
Ask your question, whoever it is.
Sorry, excuse me. Is there a way you can explain the points so far in just like a few small bullets, so we're able to write them down?
Okay, so I'll do a recap of the whole training session, no problem. So as Jillian has asked, okay, there are a couple of reasons that might result. Is there anyone else with a question? Sorry. Okay, so let me explain this. There's some grounds that might actually warrant you getting a badge clipping, which is you being late, either in the morning or after lunch. If you're found with any device, using any device during committee sessions against the, that is in contrary with what we have been telling everyone, then that is where you get a badge clipping. Also, if you're disrespectful to any delegate or a member of the secretariat or a member of the days or protocol, then you'll also get a badge clipping. So there are very many reasons. But yeah, if you're found using illegal, then you definitely there's someone else, a certain Mohammed, I think was it Mohammed who had a question. Okay, so as he, yeah, a couple of minutes. Okay, so let me do a done. So ideally, sorry for that. So ideally, we should have, so this is how it usually starts. It's usually the flow of debate that we're trying to get you guys to understand majorly. So once you've arrived on Monday, you'll get your badges and then you'll move on to the opening ceremony. Sorry, we will meet the secretariat members and you'll be directed to your various committee rooms and all matters, all that, yeah. And then afterwards, you will move into so that is Monday morning. After lunch, which will be when you paid your conference fee. Sorry. Well, after lunch, then that is when you move into your various committee rooms. Now, from your committee rooms, you'll do roll call. You'll all enter the committee room, yeah, and then protocol will close the doors. After they've closed the door, then after they've closed the door, then roll call will be done. So all countries, starting from Afghanistan all the way to Zimbabwe, will be called to see who is present and who is not. And then from there, you move into the general speakers list. After you move into the general speakers list, Barbara, could you please mute your mic? Thank you. So after you've moved into your speakers list, then that is where you give your point, you read your position papers if that is what you want your speech to be all about. Then from there you move, the chair will ask, are there any motions on the floor? Then a delegate in the committee, it could be you, it could be anyone else, you can the person will actually raise a motion to enter into a moderated caucus to discuss a specific aspect of whatever the agenda is. So if we're discussing how the youth can help in urbanization, that is in UN Habitat, then you see that will actually aid in propelling you in a certain direction. Maybe there's so many areas about the youth helping in urbanization, but there's one particular one that you think will help the committee. So that is where you raise a motion to move into an unmoderated caucus for, let's say, 20 minutes, 2 minutes per speaker to discuss this and this and that in whichever committee you'll be representing. The moderated caucus will run its time, and then if you want an extension, you extend it by 10 minutes at most. Then after those 30 minutes, the moderated caucus will end, and then you'll move back to the general speakers list before another motion is raised. Now, you can move from unmoderated. Now, after each caucus, you always revert back to the general speakers list, so you can speak generally about the agenda that has been set in your committee room. Please make sure you don't start speaking about different things that other than what has been set as the agenda in the committee room, because that will confuse everyone else and you'll be ruled out of order and you'll hear people calling for orders of the day. So, but you'll get to that with regards to training. So after we have the moderated caucus, then you move into, after the moderated caucus, you move back to GSL. After GSL, now it's up to you as the delegates to decide in which direction you feel like moving. If an unmoderated caucus is better for you, the better. If you feel that you still need another moderated caucus, then that's fine. But ideally, that is how the committee usually moves. Roll call in the morning, roll call at the beginning of the session. Then you move into the general speakers list, then to a caucus, then back to GSL, then to another caucus, then back to GSL, all the way. That is how you'll keep on moving. And then when you're just about to break for lunch or to break for the day, then that is when you raise a motion to suspend debate. And then an motion to adjourn debate will happen on Wednesday afternoon, just before, when the committee is completely breaking, like you never come back again to meet your people in the committee room. So that is the cycle ideally. Okay, in the handbook, there are some YouTube videos at the very last page. Okay. In the handbook at the very, very last page, there's some links on YouTube videos. So I hope I'm audible. Yeah. So please make sure that, yeah, there, exactly. So those full simulation, animated simulation, and model UN do's and don'ts. So if please either visit the website. If you don't find it on the website, then I'm going to type an email on the chat. So applications at saimun.net. Sorry, at saimun.net for all your questions, and we'll make sure we get back to you. I've sent it to the chat so you can check that out. Safi is asking, okay, I'm a beginner, I applied for delegates, so how do I keep moving, and how will I know who's my chair? So you'll be introduced to all those people on Monday morning. You'll get to meet your chairs on Monday morning. If by God's will all this ends and before the conference we can have a mock debate, then you can still meet your chairs at that time. So if you hear that there's a mock debate coming up after all this has come down, then that is okay. Anyone else with a question? Okay, perfect.
Glory.
Yeah. So Bam can take over and then you can
Glory.
wrap this up. Yeah. Jalen?
So are they GAs every day in the morning?
Oh, no. We don't have GA every single day. We only have GA on Thursday. And the GA usually there, that is usually the whole of Thursday. We usually have GA only to discuss the resolutions you've been discussing in your various committees. So we can't have GA every single morning. It would be too tiresome to bring everyone into one committee and then send them away to their committees again and then bring them back together. It would be too tiresome. So it's only to discuss. GA is there to discuss your resolutions, ones you've been working with behind the scenes in your committee rooms. Yeah, so that is the only thing we'll be discussing during GA and voting. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else with a question? You're welcome. Anyone else with a question? Okay, let me check the chat. I can see someone. How do you get your badge and everything else as an individual delegate? So on Monday morning, at the UN headquarters, there'll be transport offered. If you're for high school delegates, your school will bring you to the UN premises and you'll get your badges prior to that, but through your teachers, sorry. But for individual delegates, especially campus delegates, make sure that you come to the UN headquarters, UNEP, that is at Gigiri. You will get your badges there on that day. So just make sure you've noted your committee and the country you're representing, and just that's all you need. Just make sure you show up, you'll get your badges there, and then you'll be directed. But we'll cater for everything once you're there. If anyone else has a question, you can ask it. Okay, the concept of double delegation. Okay. So what is really happening on Monday? So let me answer those two questions. Okay, so a double delegation is two people representing the same country. So, and in the same committee, that is what we call a double delegation, and it's only applicable to high school delegates. University delegates cannot do that because they are registering, and once that country is off the system, it's off the system. But for for high school delegates, you can get a friend of yours and get both of you to actually represent that same country in the same committee. I hope you've understood. It's like people being twins. So you can only be twins if you're from the same family, same parents, same everything. So that's the concept of double delegation. You're ideally twins in one committee. On Monday, what happens is, conference begins on Monday morning. So you will report, get your badges, and then after you've gotten your badges, you move on to the opening ceremony. After the opening ceremony, which lasts from 10 to 12, you'll go for lunch, and then committee sessions begin from 1 p.m. all the way till 4, and then we'll ask everyone to clear from the premises and go to your various homes, and then we'll meet you. Okay, and then so we'll have we'll have an IG, or we'll have an Instagram Q&A. Your questions, you can definitely go and forward them there, or you can send them to applications@saimun.net. Better. Is there anyone else with a question? So what is the direction on the current situation? Will it be done online? No, the conference will be done in person. Like we'll meet. We hope everything will have been over by that time, but the conference is definitely happening. We won't do it online at all. The countries, how are the countries allocated? That is the last question, guys, because we have to end the webinar. So how are the countries allocated? The countries for high school delegates, you will have to do them through your teacher, but you get to pick the countries that you want to represent and the committee you want to represent. But for the campus delegates, you'll have to go to applications.saimun.net. Let me send that right now, applications.saimun.net. And then for high schools, please consult your teacher on how to register, because you can only register through your teacher. But for campus students, I've sent the link in the chat. Make sure you reach out to that. Follow us on Instagram at Sub-Saharan MUN. There are two Saimun, so please don't get confused. There's one, please make sure it's totally centered on Kenya. There's a Cameroonian one and there's this one in Kenya. So please make sure you get that. The deadline is the 15th of May. So you have 20 days ideally to the end of registration. So please, if you could hurry up and register, the better. Yeah. Anyone else with a question?
So what about like the days that we are starting on Monday, right?
Yeah, we're starting on Monday.
So like who do we pay to? Ama there is like a link, ama M-Pesa or whatever.
Okay. So okay, so as I've said, for high school students, everything is through your teacher. So you're supposed to pay to your teacher. Sawa. Yeah. So we have to wrap this up. Sawa. So
okay,
if this
thank you
situation
very much.
we'll refund you. Don't worry. We'll refund you, but we'll get to that. Don't worry. We're keeping our fingers crossed that it won't exceed hardly that time. So MUN on Instagram, on 20 on Twitter. And then so I don't know if someone anyone else with a question? Oh, sorry, not please just
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah, I think we'll have to leave it there. No, we'll have to leave it there. Maybe we can either push the rest of the questions to next week, or we can address them on the website or on the email Glory sent on the chat, because we're a bit over time. So,
okay, please create a group, like a WhatsApp group or something like that.
that's a bit hectic. So just if you have any question, just direct it to our Instagram page, or you can email, send them to the email that Gloria has put on the chat. You can just copy the email and send your email or your concerns to that email address. So with that, I think we'd like to close. Thank you, Glory, for the session, and thank you everyone for attending. Have a nice afternoon, and see you all next Saturday. Okay, thank you.